How is it sold? How is the preservation of the market philosophy, where everything is for sale, preserved? Where is the exchange? If money isn't created out of debt, where does the value come from? Because that's really what the debt is. It's a parallel value that's extracted. How do you buy money without money, aka debt, in other words? I hear tons of people talk about this stuff, about a system not based on debt and interest, and it's no surprise that they don't tell you what their solution is, because I've yet to see any solution that actually makes sense within the market system, preserving what the ethos of the market system actually is, the free market. It seems that the debt itself is the value and interest is the gain, the profit. Just like a table you buy has value and the markup of the seller gives you the profit. So I have absolutely no idea how that could work when people bring these things up to me. It's structurally flawed. So those that want to figure out other ways to do it, I'm open to suggestions. The only thing you really can do is debt forgiveness periodically. So you have the whole thing blow up as it's doing now, you forgive all debts and you wait, and then it blows up again and you forgive all debts and you wait. But is that really healthy? Number 5, habitat and resource mismanagement, pollution, depletion. This goes back to our infamous cost efficiency mechanism again. Just as companies have an inherent need to cut corners to reduce costs in production, the same logic applies to how it relates to the environment which it gains its materials to sell. Not to mention the waste protocols and pollution and environmental neglect that is ongoing. These are literally always based on saving money. And while they might seem morally objectionable in the short term, in these ethical arguments that keep coming up, they are just extensions of the same motivation. And I could give you all sorts of examples where pollution and depletion are being utilized without anyone thinking about the corruption. They just seem normal. If it's rewarded to save money, if it's rewarded in the system and it saves you money, it's going to be done in some form, no matter how many laws you make. It's just a matter of degree. If you want to stop environmental abuse, you must make sure that there's no reinforcement for it. It's that simple. That's how basic operant human conditioning works. The competitive market economy reinforces these things, and there's simply no escape when people are competing. It's just going to keep happening. You can call it greed, which is a common term we hear, oh, the greed of this and that, and the greed to not want to dispose of things correctly because they want to save money. But that is, again, a degree of the same flaw. It's not just greed. Greed doesn't really exist in its own pocket. It's just an exaggeration, an extreme of the very underlying psychology that's at work here. And finally, we get to the crux of the whole issue. What defines our system? If you really think about it, we live in an anti-economy. The word economy means management of a household. It means to be strategic in how we use our resources and take care of the habitat. It means we need to be conservative and limit waste. Is this what our system does? Last I checked, the entire global economy was based on the need for constant consumption. The more turnover, the better. The more goods bought and used and trashed, the better. The entire basis of this system is consumption, and the only reason that any of you have a job right now is because somebody is consuming something that you're working with somewhere, whether it's a service or whether it's a good you produce in a factory. There is nothing in the incentive built into the structure of our economic model that seeks to preserve or create the best, long-lasting anything or resolve problems. To put it into a sentence, preservation, efficiency, and sustainability are the enemies of the market system that we share. Part 3, a new train of thought. Now, I hope in the prior section, at a minimum, it left you with an understanding that the roots of our problems are not going to be resolved by the whims of political legislation or cries for corporate responsibility. The flaw is structural. The flaw is structurally creating a psychological element that is inhibiting our mentality, basically. And if we're really serious about creating true change to resolve our problems, we need to broaden our view of possibility. Again, on the broadest scale, what is an economy? Economy is about increasing efficiency at all times. It's about doing what is most technically correct, not what some company can afford in order to remain competitive in the market system or any other structural flaw that I've mentioned. The key word here is strategic. We need strategic allocation of resources and design. As derived from proven technical parameters, that assure maximum efficiency and hence sustainability. We need to monitor the earth and make sure we don't overuse or cause problems, such as imbalance or pollution. It's just common sense, and anything less is really negligence to our survival and the health of the planet, the more you think about it. And if you take this earth-conscious view, this needing to calculate society and use what knowledge has taught us about our survival at this point, a few defining features of this new system jump out. One, we have to move from a growth to a steady state economic structure. Constant growth is impossible on a finite planet. And the very idea assumes finite resources. All traditional ideologies, capitalism, socialism, even fascism and communism, none of them touch the fact that we live on a finite planet. It didn't even occur to people as these systems developed. Not to mention the labor requirement that's tied into these systems, which needs constant consumption and hence growth to maintain itself, can no longer exist as well. So we have to figure out a way to stabilize our system through strategy. Likewise, we need a collaborative system, not a competitive one. Optimized design and strategic scientific use of resources can only be done through a systems approach, as Jason pointed out earlier. If cost efficiency is in play with competition, you're always going to get inferior things and you're always going to have problems. We live in a world that is very dysfunctional when it comes to proprietary invention. We have this rapid increase of technology and information and everything else, and we have all these corporations fighting to maintain their propriety, therefore their market share, and they're not really sharing information. So how many times do your computers crash? You know why they really crash? It's because they're built out of things that come from all over the place that are not really tested. They're not really engineered to work together, and that's where the majority of, say, computer destabilization comes from. Softwares that are created by one company that are not fully tested in compatibility with other softwares, and you constantly have these issues. People often give me the grievance. They say, well, we don't want computers to do things. I mean, computers are so fallible. My computer crashes all the time. The reason your computer crashes is because no one's working together. If you get all the high technicians out there that are dealing with computer technology and you get them to actually work to create a system of interaction that can create the best and test it out, you will see incredible redundancy and efficiency and integrity emerge with these systems that we don't have now. The real market is the market of ideas, and ideas must be shared. The group mind must come in, and everything that's happening in the market system fights the group mind. It wants to steal parts from the group mind and exploit it on another part of the group mind. It's obnoxious. 3, we need a designed industrial system, a system that's literally taking into account, as Jason pointed out as well, resource allocation, dynamic equilibrium, and strategic design. The dispersed haphazard system we have now, such as globalization, where we use slave labor here, take component parts over to China, get them assembled there for even less cost, and then we move them around and we assemble them in some other place and then eventually export them to the United States where they're sold. This is completely insane. Unfortunately, again, that's what this system demands. It's constantly seeking ways to save money, not be truly economically efficient, which means relating to the resources, reducing energy, creating more efficiency. It's really anathema if you think about it. If you want to take care of the human population, stop wars and exploitation as well, a systems approach to earth management is required. And 4, which I'm going to stop on this one, is automation, as I talked about before. And this falls under the kind of the distinction of strategic design. Not only do we design consumer goods to be as efficient and long-lasting and updatable as they can, the very design of the production methods themselves need to be equally as strategic to maximize accuracy and output. This is how, in part, we can create an access abundance on this planet. Does that mean that it's an automated utopia and no one ever has to do anything? No. Human obligation would be more in organization of these systems to oversee them for whatever lack of integrity might exist. And really, you're only going to have a small fraction of the population actually engaging this. And people often say, well, wait a minute, who's going to pay those people if you don't have a system based on money and turnover and market? Well, I don't know. I'd be perfectly happy to oversee a system I knew that was going to feed and take care of me, stop war, cause social stability, create abundance for the Earth's people. Do you really need that incentive of reward in that superficial way to contribute to society? The glaring answer is no, if you actually analyze all the other subcultures that have existed historically throughout this planet that were not so caught into this false incentive notion. Now, I'm going to basically stop here, but as I've denoted, this is basically a resource-based economic model that Jason pointed out earlier. This is just some of the attributes that comprise that issue. And the Zeitgeist movement basically exists as a group that's trying to get these ideas out there, to expose the fundamental flaws of the system, to get the world to learn to work together, sharing a common value set, which is a value set that's undeniable. It doesn't matter what your religion or creed or anything relates to your political philosophy. If it's not technically based, if you're not actually orienting technically, which is really the beauty of where science has led us at this point, then you're not really associated with anything at all. There is an underlying basic logic that all of humanity needs to share with respect to how they live on this planet, and given that logic, we can devise a ground-up approach to how the system would actually work that is almost completely self-evident as knowledge moves forward. So, the term zeitgeist is defined as the general intellectual, moral, and cultural climate of an era. To change the world, you have to change values. The real revolution is a revolution of values, isn't it? It's a revolution of thought. And until we get everyone on a plane to share a basic common value set, I hate to be dramatic, but I say we're all doomed, you know, because the advent of technology and everything that's happening right now, this destabilization on the horizon, could easily lead to increased problems that far exceed our ability to problem solve. There is a point of no return, I think, that can exist. So that's why the movement's global, 1,000 chapters across 70 countries, and it's not a matter of engaging or joining or anything like that. It's a matter of understanding and communicating to your fellow man what's right. The institution itself, the Zeitgeist movement, is irrelevant, just as any institution is. What is an institution? It's a foundational set of ideas, and those ideas have to change, and they have to adapt. So I hope this gives some insight to you as far as values and maybe jogs some interests, and I thank you for listening. And we'll have a Q&A here in just a second.
And we're also going to try to warm it up in here a little bit. I don't know about you, but I was sitting down front here and waiting for my jacket. So, we're just going to change things around a little bit. We have a wireless microphone, and for those of you who may not know, we are webcasting live tonight. Our webcast camera is up there if you see the little red light going. So that gives the audience watching around the world a chance to participate as well. In order for your questions to be heard, we have a wireless microphone. This is Kim. Kim's going to be our microphone moderator. I'm going to just ask a couple things up front. Please frame whatever you're going to say as a question. I know once the microphone's in front of you, the magnetism to tell a story just overwhelms some people. Refrain if you can, and just find a way to put a question mark in whatever it is you're going to say, so we can actually participate with you. Okay? Let's see. So we're just going to move this out of the way, and we'll. I don't know if we have chairs. We may have to stand so people in the back can see, and we'll take it from there. Just give us 1 second. Yeah. Would you like that? Okay, fine. So the way the Q&A will work, I guess, is Kim will have a wireless mic. Please make a line up here. Come up to Kim. Ask us your questions. Webcast can see you. Webcast can hear you. And it'll work. I think that'll work really well. Thanks. We'll keep this here for us. The one mic, PJ. Yeah, for us. I'll be with you. I am going to sit. Let's do this. We can share the mic. We'll share the mic. You don't have to. You don't have to.
Hit mute. This needs to be off.
It's only Jason. Oh,
There we go. Check, check, check. There it is. Okay, here we go.
check.
Good. Probably passing it around to each other. Just to hold it down. All right.
Question? Hi, I'm Bella DeSoto. Thank you so much for holding this event. Visualizing a systems approach, technical relationship. I love everything. I'm very interested about the state of our physical and mental health of the poor in this world, because they're the most maligned, they're the most incapable of having clarity of thought, and that's a depression for all of us. The physical and mental health, but then we go into automation. I want you guys to really take more time and sell me on how far will automation take me to the following: efficiency, preservation, conservation through natural law and reason. And by the way, don't worry, I am the socialist.
Well, I suppose the train of thought for automation would answer all of those quality issues you denoted. If you think about what's happened as far as production since the Industrial Revolution, which was the first of massive machinery taking hold and replacing human labor. Obviously, we had agriculture, which now maybe 3% of the world's population work in, and usually that has to do with a lot of impoverished cultures that don't have the ability to automate. In fact, let's start with there. The ability to produce has increased exponentially. The amount of grains and food, it's outrageous how much is able to be produced now, even with just arable land. We're not even talking about, say, vertical farms and all these new advanced technologies with aeroponics and hydroponics, which kind of build into the equation of really this evolution of technology and its application to create things. So it's not just the automation of labor, it's the use of technology to actually improve the systems that generate. So it's kind of within the same sphere, if that makes sense. So sustainability, efficiency, preservation, how can you compare with, say, a machine that doesn't need to take vacations, that doesn't need health insurance, well, that's actually irrelevant, excuse me, that's an economic issue. Well, that goes back to the cost efficiency of why we're going to be displaced by them continually. But if you think about the very stat that the more we've automated, the higher the production efficiency, higher the output has been in almost all sectors studied. It doesn't take much intuition to see that as well. You know, you can wait in line at a bank, or you can go to an automated teller. Which would you prefer to do? The teller will work much more quickly than waiting in line. You can go to you go into any car factory and imagine if all those people that are there, all those people that used to be there to put this car together, which now it's 90% automated in all car factories. Just imagine going back and look at the B-roll of these factories, Ford, where everyone had to do everything manually. Outrageous amounts of safety was in decline. People got hurt constantly in those environments. The output wasn't even a fraction of what it is now because of how fast these machines can work. So efficiency, good safety, sustainability is built right into efficiency. So it's a broad scheme. And I would say that if you can think of a way to counter the argument to say that mechanization and the use of technology isn't efficient, isn't sustainable, isn't preserving, because think about preservation. It's a preservation of energy, really, in most levels. It's preservation of time because of how fast and clean these machines can operate, and they're only getting better. So I'd like to hear an argument against it.
I'd like to connect it to your concern for mental health and well-being. I mean, if you think about it, in jobs today, in our current structure, humans are doing jobs that machines can be doing, and so that's what their time is spent doing. And I would much rather have machines do the jobs of machines and humans be humans. So that's what I look forward to in the future projection of what a resource-based economy would have to offer people. Getting humanity back, getting your life back, getting relationships back. To me, that's enormously appealing.
Yeah, absolutely. labor force gets displaced. The labor force doesn't exist. The system has to adapt where there isn't a labor force. There are people that interact with the system. There will be people that do things, as you would say, but they're not being rewarded financially for it. They're being rewarded by the fact that they're actually contributing to something that benefits them. They're putting into the system and they're getting out of the system. And I think, say for example, you had a city, say Los Angeles, and it needed X amount of people to engage and keep this system going. Say, for example, people monitoring vertical farms off the coast of Los Angeles, desalination plants, taking water to go to aeroponic vertical farms, producing all the food almost completely automated for all of Los Angeles, which could be done today if we wanted it, for free because it'd be so efficient. The supervisors in that circumstance could be rotating. You could have one person working 1 hour and then everyone else working the other hours. It could be very easy. And I think people will step over themselves, frankly, to contribute to this system. Got it.
Hello, I'm Nick. I'm a junior here at USC and part of the Zeitgeist Club. I was wondering how fast we can see this implementing completely, and do you think there will be like an intermediate stage before we have all the systems approach down complete sustainability?
Well, if you were to think about it as far as what's happening now, everything's against this system. There's nothing in the mechanisms of the system that we have now except for its consequences. All those pressures, the unemployment, the pollution, and the destabilization that's occurring. Those are forcing us to think about something new, but no one in government or no one is actually contemplating such a rational, practical solution at this point. It's completely practical what we advocate. It's absolutely logical. It's impractical from the standpoint of the current establishment. So I have no idea, but Jason, you want to jump in that?
Well, there's a lot of different factors as far as like how fast could it happen. You know, if you were to ask some people who study design